Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Mid-Level Media, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. And today I wanted to have a little topic discussion video. I wanted to talk about 7 movies. That do not have physical media releases, that are pretty high profile films that have come out in the past 2 or 3 years. They're all recent films. And I wanted to just kind of dig into each film. Now, look, I don't have any more information on these and why they don't have physical releases any more than you all. But I dug into them a little bit, kind of looked at the studios that were involved in making them, distributing them, what streaming platforms that they're a part of, and just looking at like past patterns as well to try to predict whether or not we will get physical versions of these. Now, I will go ahead and say 2 of these on my list do have physical versions in other countries, but I am talking about the US specifically, I guess. So yeah, guys, just wanted to have a topic-centric video, just something I could kind of sit down here and talk about with you guys. It's something that's been on my mind, and these are titles, like some of these titles come up all the time in my comments section as well. So I thought it'd be good to just kind of sit down and address some of these. I'm going to try, though, guys, I'm really going to try when I talk about these movies to not get heated, to not get worked up. We're just going to have a calm, cool, collected discussion about these movies and whether or not they're going to get physical releases. So, of course, we're going to get into the whole streaming versus physical thing. And I think it's important to continue to have these conversations, because who knows where we're going to be in 5 to 10 years as they continue to, as movies and entertainment and all this kind of stuff just continues to evolve and transition and seemingly move away from the physical and more towards the digital and streaming. That's where it feels like it's going. But look, I don't want it to go there. That's not where I want it to go. So I like to keep talking about this stuff and keep bringing this stuff up. Even if people have heard me talk about it before and you're sick of it, whatever. I think it's important to continue these types of conversations because I don't want our films to be regulated to a streaming service. I just don't. I think that all films of importance, and look, let's face it, most of the movies that are made are somewhat important. They're important to somebody, right? They're important to somebody. Movies of importance, films, cinema, film history, all this stuff deserves to be preserved in the best possible quality. It deserves to be preserved on a physical disc. That is what I believe. Beyond the bootlegs, because there are bootleggers that will put these movies on physical disc. Legitimate releases. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I want to support because it doesn't do the creators or the artists any good. And I'm not saying that I'm an angel over here, that I don't have bootlegs in my collection. But it doesn't do the artists and the creators of the movie any good at all to buy a bootleg of their film. Not that that's on us. If the studio's not releasing it, they're not releasing it. Maybe that's the only way we can get it and own it in our collection. So I'm not faulting anybody that has bootlegs. Like maybe if there's a legitimate release and you bootlegged it, maybe you're at fault. But if there's nothing and that's the only thing you can get your hands on, then by all means. But it just sucks for the creators. It sucks for us because I don't want a bootleg. I want a real legitimate version in my collection. But let's just get into it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. The first movie that I want to talk about today is a film that I honestly hadn't given a second thought to since I watched it on Amazon Prime. It was one of my wife's favorite movies of last year. She absolutely loved it, but Saltburn. So this movie came out at the end of 2023. This is a film directed by Emerald Fennell, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She also did Promising Young Woman, which was nominated for Best Picture back in 2021. So it's a notable filmmaker. This is a film that got quite a bit of buzz when it came out. Like it was a really popular movie. Like a lot of people were talking about it. A lot of people were memeing this film. It's got Barry Keoghan in it as well, who's a pretty, I'd say, on the rise hot actor at this time, at least in the independent, art house film scene. But this is a movie that was on Amazon Prime. I think it was in the theaters as well. I think it went theatrically, made a little bit of money theatrically, but it was designed, it was meant to be a streaming movie on Amazon Prime. With this one in particular, there's a couple other movies that I want to compare it to. And like I said, I hadn't really thought about this movie, but I'm like, yeah, where is the physical release for Saltburn? This is a movie that came out and was very popular and probably would sell extremely well on physical media if it was given the opportunity to actually have a physical disc and a release put out there. So I wanted to compare this to two movies that we've gotten recently that kind of fall under the MGM Amazon Prime banner, and they were both distributed on Blu-ray by Warner Brothers, and that is Air and Challenger. So Air was an Amazon Prime. It was an Amazon Prime exclusive, but it was also in the theaters. It was kind of weird, and then we'll see those lines be blurred more on this list when I get to talking about these movies. They're exclusive to their streaming services, but they're also in theaters. So I don't know exactly how that works, but I believe that Air was supposed to be a Prime exclusive. It released on Prime. I remember I watched it with my wife on Prime. And at the end of last year, it was released on Blu-ray. I think maybe in October. It might have been August. I can't remember, guys. But Air was released on Blu-ray. It was put out on Blu-ray, and it was an Amazon Prime exclusive that was also in the theaters. Directed by Ben Affleck, had Matt Damon in it, so it had the star power. So that one came out on Blu-ray. I've got it in the collection, and that was an Amazon Prime and also MGM collaboration that was put out by Warner Brothers. Then we had Challengers, which was a theatrically released film, just came out on physical media. Now, this was, I believe, not supposed to be an Amazon Prime exclusive, but it was a movie that was made by Amazon and put in the theaters. And this one got a theatrical release also by Warner Brothers. So that would lead me to believe that Saltburn should have gotten the same treatment. And here we are, 7 months, 8 months. I think the movie came out maybe in November of 2023, somewhere around that time frame. We're 8 months later, and we have not gotten that movie on any kind of physical release. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but the thing that I'm thinking is probably going to happen, I could be wrong. I think this movie will come to physical media. I think this movie will 100% come to physical media. But I think that's what's going to, because this movie's getting like vinyl soundtrack scores, and it's got like a vinyl that has the bath water in it. I saw that on Instagram, I think, the other day. So the movie's getting releases, physical score releases. So I feel like it'll get a physical movie release, but this one will get a physical release, I believe, from the Criterion Collection. Will it be this year? Will it be early next year? Will it be late next year? I'm not sure, but I think that Saltburn will come out from the Criterion Collection because we do have MGM titles in the Criterion Collection. They do work with each other from time to time. Also, Warner Brothers works with Criterion as well, so it just feels like it's all in the family there. And I feel like Saltburn's the type of like artsy film that would just, work itself right into that Criterion Collection. It would be right at home, so to speak, in the Criterion Collection. It's a film lover's film, if that makes any sense. So I think that Saltburn will at some point get some kind of probably a 4K, I would say, because it is a beautifully made film, great cinematography, beautiful visuals. So I think the movie will get a 4K from the Criterion Collection and a Blu-ray as well at some point. We've also got Killers of the Flower Moon. So a lot of people ask me about this one all the time. This one does have an Italian 4K release. Now, the last I heard, this was a region-locked 4K, and it's one of the very few region-locked 4Ks because that doesn't happen very often. I get this question a lot too, like, is 4K region-locked? Do I need a 4K region-free player? And the answer is no. For 99.9% of 4Ks, they're region-free, and you can play them anywhere. But there's a couple of exceptions. I think People Under the Stairs from Scream Factory, for some reason, was region-locked on 4K, and also Killers of the Flower Moon as well. And there was another title that I can't think of off the top of my head. They may have fixed People Under the Stairs. I think that was some kind of an error, but it doesn't happen very often, I guess is my point. But it does have an Italian 4K, so a 4K of Killers of the Flower Moon does exist, but it's overseas. Now, this was an Apple movie. It was directed by Martin Scorsese. The thing about Apple is I have seen some of their stuff come out on physical media. I've seen the movie called Greyhound with Tom Hanks. That has a DVD-only release through Columbia Pictures and Sony, I'm assuming. So that movie, it has a physical release. It's DVD only. They didn't do a Blu-ray, at least official Blu-ray of Greyhound, just the DVD. I think I have it in the collection somewhere. I feel like somebody sent me that. And also Defending Jacob got a Blu-ray release. That was an Apple TV Plus exclusive. That one was put out by Paramount. So Defending Jacob came out on Blu-ray from Paramount. And also the series Ted Lasso is coming out. And I actually think that Warner Brothers is putting that one out. So Apple stuff, guys, seems to be put out, distributed by all the studios. It's definitely interesting when it comes to Apple TV Plus, the stuff that they allowed to come out on physical versus the stuff that they just keep on their streaming service. There was another show that my wife and I watched on Apple TV called The Servants, and I do not believe that that got any kind of physical release, even though I think it was an M. Night Shyamalan produced show. Maybe it did get a Blu-ray. I just don't remember it getting a Blu-ray at any point in time, and I don't think it's gotten any recent Blu-ray releases as well. So definitely interesting when it comes to Apple TV, but I think that Killers of the Flower Moon will get a release at some point. It is distributed by Paramount, so it would be a Paramount release. Now, what I'm thinking is because it's Scorsese, and Scorsese seems to work so heavily with the Criterion Collection on a lot of his films, I think that Killers of the Flower Moon will probably get a Criterion release at some point. But if not, it'll probably get a 4K release from Paramount. I think they just wanted to have that exclusivity on Apple TV Plus. And Killers of the Flower Moon is another example of a movie that was in the theaters as well, had a theatrical run, was produced by Apple, and after its theatrical run, they dropped it on their streaming service. So I think they want this to have some kind of exclusivity on their streaming service to kind of help them bump the numbers for time being, and make some of that money back, because I think the movie costs like $200 million to make. Not that Apple is probably worried about it. From what I hear, like Apple doesn't give a damn. They just spend all this money on these movies and they put them on their streaming service or they put them in the theaters, and they don't care if they bomb or not because they're Apple and they make their money elsewhere. That's what I hear. But it's like what company like consciously likes to lose money? You know, that just doesn't make any sense. Like, there's not many companies like that. I don't see how Apple would be one of those types of company. Obviously, that's why they're so successful. They know how to run a business and turn a profit. So they probably want to turn profits with their movies. So maybe they'll keep it exclusive on their streaming service for a year, 2 years, and then we'll get that Criterion release, or maybe just a standard 4K release from Paramount. So that's Killers of the Flower Moon. I think that will, because it's a Scorsese movie, and I think that Scorsese, well, he's not a streaming director. I think he'll push hard to get his movie on a physical disc. Now let's get to the third one. And this is one I wasn't really thinking about, because this is a movie that came out in theaters this year. And to be honest, like, I kind of just forgot about it, but it really hasn't gotten a physical release. And I was kind of like curious as to why. And then I discovered it was also an Apple original movie that was put in the theaters, and that is Argyle. So this is a movie directed by Matthew Vaughn. Came out earlier this year. This has distribution from Universal. So there's Universal thrown in the mix with Apple. So they really do just kind of interact with all the different studios, it feels like. But Universal has distribution for Argyle. This was in the theaters. The budget was $200 million. Like I said, you're not going to get a budget of $200 million for a movie, for an original IP like Argyle, directed by Matthew Vaughn. Even if it's Matthew Vaughn, who's done a number of franchise films like the Kick-Ass movies and also the Kingsman movies, and he did, and I think he just did one X-Men movie. But you know, he's a big director. He's had his hand in a lot of franchises, but you're not going to give him $200 million to make an original IP. I think maybe it's based on a comic or something. I don't really know what Argyle is, but budget $200 million. Apple funded that, and the box office was 96.2. Now, I don't know if this movie is currently on Apple TV Plus. I don't have Apple TV Plus. I imagine it probably is. So this might be another Killers of the Flower Moon situation where they want this to have exclusivity on their streaming service to help sell more streaming subscriptions within the next year or so. And then after that, they'll let Universal put this movie out on 4K and Blu-ray. But I did find that interesting because I didn't know this was Apple, and I was like, well, why doesn't Argyle? Like, wasn't that Universal? Because I knew it was Universal, and then I looked into it, and I was like, oh, it's Apple that did this one. That's probably why this doesn't have a physical release. But this is one that people do ask about not getting a physical, and I did think it was weird when I first thought about it. It is a theatrically released film big budget film by a big budget, big name director with plenty of stars. You got Henry Cavill in this movie. I think Bryce Dallas Howard is in the film as well. So big movie in the theaters, no physical release, but Apple is involved. So there is a little bit of an explanation. But I do think we'll get that one on 4K and Blu-ray at some point. We've also got No One Will Save You. So this is one that came out on Hulu last year. I liked this one. I didn't love it as much as everybody else. It was a pretty good, like, kind of alien invasion. Kind of felt a little bit like Signs in parts, but I couldn't get on board with the way that the aliens looked. It just looked a little bit too goofy to me, but I like this movie. It's got Caitlin Dever in it. It was kind of interesting how she didn't really talk much throughout the film. Anyway, I'm not talking about the film. This was on Hulu. It's 20th Century Studios, so we'll get into Disney territory here a little bit, which we've got plenty more Disney to talk about. This is really kind of like Apple TV and Disney that we're really digging into today, I feel like. Well, and also Amazon Prime as well. So No One Will Save You, Hulu, 20th Century Studios. I think this one has a decent shot of hitting a 4K or a Blu-ray release because Prey got a 4K and a Blu-ray, and that was also a Hulu original film. And I believe there's another Hulu original that got put out. I cannot think of it off the top of my head, but I feel like there's another one. Maybe not. Maybe I'm making that up, but I'm hoping that this movie, because I think it was pretty popular when it came out, and it also had a little bit of a theatrical run as well. So hopefully we will get No One Will Save You on Blu-ray or 4K at some point from Disney of all people. Well, I guess Sony and Disney at this point, since Sony's doing the work for them because they can't do their own damn work. Anyway, let's talk about another 20th Century Studios and also Disney film, See How They Run. So this one was a part of the controversy with another title I'll talk about at the end of this video. It was a couple of years ago, and that one got all the attention. This one got a little bit of attention, but not as much. But I honestly haven't seen this film, so I don't know if it's any good or not. So I can't really speak too much on it. I think it's some kind of comedy, mystery, heist, crime film of some kind. I think it's set during the Prohibition era. At least they look like they, are in the like Prohibition era, 20s, 30s time period in the United States. But it's got Sam Rockwell in it. It's got Saoirse Ronan. So it's got some big name stars in it. And it was put out on Hulu. And it also had a theatrical run as well. I didn't mention that, but it was in the theaters. And it made a little bit of money. I think it made $22 million in the theaters when it came out. And a lot of people wanted this on physical media, and they didn't get it. And it was another case of Disney dropping the ball. And it was honestly kind of strange when you think about it, because a movie called Banshees of Inisherin came out later that year, and that was also 20th Century Studios that did that one, that was responsible for that one. And that one did get a Blu-ray, and also The Menu was 20th Century Studios, and that one got a Blu-ray. So for See How They Run to also have a theatrical run and not get a Blu-ray just seemed kind of weird. And it's also weird when you think about the other title that I will get to eventually, guys. But See How They Run, I think at this point, this movie's just kind of forgotten about. I don't know if they'll ever circle back. I don't think it has that kind of like name recognition or value for them to actually go back. I don't think there may be like a small minority of people that's championing it, but I don't think a lot of people en masse are really championing this movie. So unless Disney, 20th Century Studios, Sony just realizes, hey, we didn't do this movie, let's go ahead and give it some Blu-ray treatment, there's a fan base, I don't know if this movie will ever get a Blu-ray release. But let's move on to the next one. This is a Best Picture winner. And as far as I know, off the top of my head, this may be the only Best Picture winner that does not have a physical media release, and that is Coda from 2021. So this won Best Picture, I believe, in 2022. It was the same Oscars with the Will Smith slap. So this one because nobody remembers it. Nobody remembers this movie at all winning Best Picture because it won Best Picture on the night of the slap, and that kind of took all the attention away. But Coda came out in 2021. Pretty good movie, coming of age film about a girl with a deaf family and how she kind of had to navigate her teenage years just dealing with them and all the extra things that they required of her. So it was a really good, and she also like wanted to be a singer or something. I think I'm thinking of that right. But Coda won Best Picture and does not have a physical release, and this was also an Apple TV original film. And this one, unlike Killers of the Flower Moon and also Argyle, which we talked about earlier, does not have any kind of studio distribution. Like, this is distributed by Apple and was also produced by Apple. So they would have to release it on some kind of I would imagine a boutique edition, like a Criterion would probably be good for Coda, because this is not through the studio system. Like, this is Apple from the ground up. But this is the movie that won Best Picture. It absolutely deserves, whether or not you think the movie's good or bad or whatever, it won Best Picture. It has a certain place in film history now, and this is just a movie that I feel like I'm afraid is going to be lost because it's not going to be immortalized in that physical form. It's not going to be preserved like it needs to be preserved. So Coda absolutely needs that physical release in the US. Well, let's go ahead and jump into this last one, guys. Let's talk about Barbarian. How about it? I've talked about Barbarian so much on this channel, but you know what? I'm not getting tired of it because it's bullshit. It is absolute. This is where we're going to get ranty, guys. It is absolute bullshit that a movie, a horror film, a genre film from 2022 that caught the world by storm, the horror community by storm. Everybody in the community, well, I can't say everybody, but a lot of people loved this movie. A lot of people hyped this movie up, and it was honestly, personally, one of my favorite horror films of that year. I absolutely loved Barbarian. Such a fantastic film. Original film. We don't get a ton of original films anymore, and I feel like the horror genre is really the one that's like carrying the torch for originality these days. And this was definitely one of the more unique original horror films that we've gotten in the past 10 years. But Barbarian, such a great movie, was put out by 20th Century Studios in the theater. It was budgeted at $4 to 5 million, I think, and made $45 million at the box office, made 9 times its budget. Was brought out on HBO Max streaming, which was super weird. I have no idea why, but I remember specifically sitting down one morning with my wife. I talked about my wife a lot in this video today. I've noticed that we watched Barbarian on HBO Max, and it was only on HBO Max for, I think, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, and then after that, it disappeared. Now, it's probably on Amazon Prime now. It's probably on some other streaming services. I don't really know where Barbarian is at the current moment on streaming. But I thought for sure it would get some kind of a Blu-ray release. Maybe not a 4K release. It didn't need a 4K. But I thought for sure it would get some kind of a Blu-ray release, because you know what also got a Blu-ray release that was put out from 20th Century Studios? The Boogeyman. The movie that came out in 2023, came out in summer of 2023. I don't think it made as much money as Barbarian. I think it was budgeted higher than Barbarian, and it got a Blu-ray release. Barbarian did not get a Blu-ray release, and it's almost like at this point, they just forgot about it. It's either that or they're playing a joke on all of us. Why had you not? Why? Why Disney? If you're watching, maybe you are, maybe you're not. Maybe somebody from Disney's watching, who knows? Why at this point in time have we not gotten this freaking movie on Blu-ray? It feels like at this point, it's like we're never going to get it. Why didn't we not get it? It just doesn't make any sense. It's different than See How They Run. I can see that movie slipping through the cracks. They forgot about it, whatever. Barbarian made a splash. It made an impact. People still talk about this movie and how they want it to come out physically. And I remember, guys, back in 2022, I made a video talking about it and how it was BS that this movie had not gotten any kind of Blu-ray or 4K release at that point. And I got tons of comments saying that, oh, you're just hyping it up. You're fear mongering. You're making people worry about something that they shouldn't have to worry about, because the producer guy, Roy Lee, tweeted that they were working on a DVD commentary. It's coming, Ken. Quit being negative towards Disney for no reason. Blah, 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 blah. Now, I got a lot of comments that agree with me as well, but I remember those negative comments. I remember getting called out for that, and people saying that, oh, Roy Lee, he it's coming, Ken, it's absolutely coming. And where is it? It's not here. It is not here. Roy Lee tweeted they were working on a commentary. They were finished with the commentary, and it was going to be on the DVD release. He actually said DVD. So, but it doesn't have a DVD either. It doesn't have a DVD, doesn't have a Blu-ray, doesn't have a 4K. Barbarian, where the fuck is it? We need it. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize for the language. I really do, but it's ridiculous. This is the one that just drives me crazy because it's such a great movie. It's a horror film. Collectors eat that stuff up. They would make so much money if they did some kind of nice special edition, 4K edition for Barbarian, but they won't do it. Like, give it that Avatar treatment, like that big, like, fold out booklet set. Like, why are you, it just, I just don't get it. I'm just done. That is honestly, like, that's what led me down the road of just hating Disney as much as I do. It's Barbarian. Like, that is what's done it. But there you have it, guys. I don't know what else to say. We need Barbarian on Blu-ray, 4K. We need Saltburn. We need Killers of the Flower Moon, Argyle. No One Will Save You. See how they run. Well, maybe See How They Run's okay on streaming. Coda, we definitely need. I'm just kidding. See How They Run. We need a Blu-ray of that. Coda, Best Picture winner. We need that on physical media. But guys, let me know your thoughts on all this in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications for all future videos, and I'll see you next time.